Well, whenever you are developing an application in Angular, you cannot rely on Angular core itself. You need to get a help from third-party modules and third-party libraries in order to design a beautiful UIs. So we are going to talk about some popular libraries which we need to have in every Angular project to develop an great looking UI elements. So Angular Material is a one. Then we have a Bootstrap widgets and we have a Tailwind. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up these libraries in your Angular project and how you can start to use it. I will jump to my VS Code and will show you how exactly it works. To be clear, it's not only this much of the libraries that we have. There is a endless open source libraries available on the internet that you can explore, but these are the popular ones that are being used. I've been working on Angulars for straight 5 years now, and I have seen the every project that I worked till now was using Angular material. So this is the reality of IT industry. Every project is dependent on the Angular material. So let's see what is the Angular material and what it does. So Angular material is a UI toolkit library. It provides your UI widgets and the UI elements that you can add in your project, and you don't need to write the things from the scratch. So what are the components? So you can see the feature components like the date picker, input, slide toggle, and there are many things. So if I go to the component, then you can see that there is a library of components available like autocomplete badge, bottom sheet, and there are so many components that you can add in your Angular project. In order to add them, if you click on any of it, it will open a page where you can see the overview, the API details, and the example. In the example, you can find out the code that you have to refer, and there is a HTML and the TS code and the CSS. So now we are on the Angular Material official site. As you can see, material.angular.io is the URL for it, and let's move to the get started. And there we have this instruction that how we can install Angular Material library using the command. So here we have ng add Angular Material. So ng add is nothing but it's a Angular specific command for the npm install. It's similar like npm install that we do, but it is through an ng add. So ng add, it basically downloads the package from the npm registry and then do an installation. So it's a mix of two things here: downloading a package from npm registry and then installing it. It seems like I have run that in the wrong directory, so I need to move to the project directory, which is the calendar app, and now I will hit enter with the ng add Angular material. So now you can see here, when I hit this command on the top, it says that it's using a npm package manager, which is by default ng add uses. So then it is ask you for would you like to proceed to download it. Say yes. Then we have a choice for which theme we want to set up as a default theme for application. So we have like some predefined set of themes that Angular offers you, like indigo, pink, purple, green, or other. You can also choose a custom one. Then it says whether you want to set up the global typography styles. So that I'm going to you can pass it if you want it, and in this case I want it, so I just hit yes. Then it has a dependency. The Angular widgets and the Angular components has a dependency on the animations module. That's why it says that it want to include a animations module. So that also I said yes, and as a result of it, you can see there are some files it has updated. Like in the app module ts, it has made a new import, and that is browser animation module. That's what I was talking about, that if you are using Angular materials widgets, you need to have this material this animation imported. Then in the style css, you can see it has imported the materials CSS. I'm using SCSS, that's why the syntax is a little different. I am having this dollar sign and the variable that are used to assign the values or to create variables. And like you can see, since we did a setup of material through a CLI, it has automatically created the some variables and assigned what value the color to assign, and it has created under the color there are primary, accent, warn. Those are the properties of a color, or like you can call it like a different variants of a color that we can use in our application. If I just specify a color equals to primary in my CSS rule or color equals to accent in my CSS rule, anywhere in my component, it will be able to identify. So this is the modularity actually. And if you want to change this color in future, it becomes very easy. You will just change one variable here, the color code. Then you can see this font family. So by default, it has set up the font which is Helvetica, and that font, uh, when we specified that option whether you want to set up a font typography, that is because it has added. And one more for file it updated in the index HTML, you can see that it's referring to the font related files. So it is currently taking that from the online, from the internet, and it is referring a fonts.google API. But this is not a good practice. We don't want our application to rely on some third-party sites. And if there is some connection issues happening, it may cause our application to misbehave or not function properly. So uh, keeping our font files or referring them in the online, it's not a good practice. And that's why what we do, or what I do in my projects, is I always create a assets folder, and inside that assets folder, whatever my dependencies, like the static files I have, like font files, and other dependencies like this, or any third party CSS, if I have, or my custom CSS, I just put it there in my assets. Okay, so now we'll create new component, and for that I'm using this VS Code extension with using which you can just create a new component. So I created this age calculator component here, and then I want to refer this selector of this component in my root component, which is app component. And now I will write a code for demonstrating the usage of Angular material widgets. So I simply added a mat form field. Mat form field is a custom tag or a custom selector, whatever call it. It comes from the Angular's materials library, and since many of the Angular widgets are used to gather input from user, we use them in a form. That's why material offers you to encapsulate the fields of the input fields inside a wrapper, and that wrapper is a mat form field. Similarly, we have a mat label, and there we can specify the name of the field that we want to show to a user, to help user like what this particular input element represent. Now this is the actual thing, the input mat date picker. I want to accept a date. That's why I have added this date picker. And you can see that with the help of material, there are some things which are extra there, like a date change event is there, and mat date picker is the property which is by default comes with it. Then the date picker toggle, I want to show a panel of calendar once user click on it. So that's why the code is there for the mat date picker, and picker is the template variable I use. Next thing, this is my custom one, that whenever user will select any date, I want to accept that date, want to process it, want to calculate the age of a user in the years, in the minutes, and in the days, and that I simply want to show below. So that's what this div tag is doing here. Now I need to import few things in order to make my material widgets executable, so that Angular understand that material widgets are coming from some library, and it will be successfully rendered on the UI. So forms control I have imported, and that is because we have only one element, which is per date that we are accepting. But if you are not familiar with what this form control, I recommend you watching another video of mine where I talk about the forms. Calculate age is my custom function, and to this I have I'm just like accepting the value which is selected in the date picker, and I'm using a maths library, which is the core library in the TypeScript or in the JavaScript itself. And this is my logic basically to calculate the difference between the current time and the date that user has selected. And you can see that on line number 22, birthday.value, this is where I'm accepting a value from my pickup. And this is the event date changed event, and this comes with the Angular material. And on the date change event, I want to like calculate a difference, and so that the difference will be calculated and the updated value will be shown on the division box below. So now I can see there are some errors on my HTML, and it says that it's not able to identify these elements, and that is very obvious and very logical, because in order to make the materials, components, materials, module to be identifiable by our application, we need to import them in our app module, and we need to like specify that they are imported so that our Angular application knows like they are coming from material, and it will uh, make them available for the components under it. So these things, as you can see in mat icon module, the date picker one I referenced, those are the material one. Forms module and the reactive forms module that you need whenever you are creating any form control, you need to import that. That's not specific to a material. So after that, you can see I'm able to see it on my UI that the date picker is there, and it's applying the styles whatever are there by specified in the Angular material, and able to choose the date. Let me choose my birth date, which is 5th October, and I can see this function of mine for calculating the difference is also working fine, able to change the data. So this thing, this so this is just was one widget I referred. If you go to the Angular component, you can find there are a lot of widgets that you have there, and I just choose the date picker for just sake of this tutorial. And if I go down there, you can see that there is a code also given, and this is a code that I basically referred for writing the date picker in my file. So you can do a lot of customization around it. Angular material, it provides APIs for it where you can decide the format. You can add some validation. For example, if you want to accept a date uh, and that you want in a format of MMDD, YY, or you want to change that to something else, whatever custom, you can do that. So for that, you need to explore the API section of Angular material, and you'll be able to add and understand more. Now, since I have these things over here, you can notice one thing, that there are a lot of imports we added in our app module, and that seems cluttery code, because adding too many imports in the app module, it doesn't look good. And the purpose of app module is to only keep the things which are necessary. In the real world, we don't put everything in the app module. If you are putting every imports and all the components declaration in the app module, that is the worst pattern that you are following, and in future it is going to be very problematic. So we follow the module driven approach, where we follow hierarchy, we create multiple modules, and uh, then whatever modules are required, that only we declare. So my point here is that this too many imports of material, it It's not an ideal practice to put all of them in the app module. And sometimes we have scenarios where we don't want material dependencies to be injected across all application. In most of cases we need it, but in some rare cases we want just it to be in some modules, some specific modules. So that's why we create a separate module for the material, and that's what I created here. Material module. I just need the module file, so I will delete the other things, and these imports whatever I have here, I will move them from app module to this materials module. And similarly I will remove this imports uh, entries, and I will simply put them in the imports. Now if I go to age calculator, I still have the error, and that is because I have missed one thing. So now we are not just importing them, but we also wanted to export the we want to export the things that we have added. So it need to be exports in the material, and that export needs to be imported inside the app module. So I just did that, and now you can see that the code is very less compared to what we had previously. It's looking less cluttery. It is more clean, and it is easy to understand that in my app module I have just imported the material module, and that means the material is been provided to entire application. So this makes a code readable, and these are the small things that you as a developer, you as a software engineer need to follow.